All right, it's 5 o'clock. Is everyone ready? Okay, I'd like to call this meeting to order. Do roll call. Kathleen Allen. Here. Brian Chetney.
Here.
Tom Ciappa.
Here.
Heather Del Ponte here. Brandon Legault.
Here.
Linda Serino. Here. Samuel Tripp.
Here.
Okay, please stand for the pledge.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we can open the floor to the public. We have two names. Before we call names, I'd like to remind everyone that we are here just to listen. You'll have 3 minutes, and there will not be an exchange between the board and the person speaking. We will listen and take notes, and if there needs to be follow-up, we'll do so. So the first person is Sean Callan. Please come forward, state your name and address.
Sean Callan, 3239 State Route 48, Oswego, New York. Here today, thank you. I appreciate the time on behalf of the Buck Boosters. I just wanted to share some positive feedback from students, parents, and community members about the inaugural School and Community Spirit Parade. We've had a lot of people come back to us, and especially the students had a lot of fun. This was the first year, so I think there was probably a lot of involvement by adults, but we're looking to kind of teach them how to fish, and so that they get more involved. It's been a while since we've had a parade like this in the school district, so we hope that we can build off of it, and next year, you know, they're more engaged, doing more of some of the things that we were kind of heading this year. Certainly when you do something like this, there's a lot of people that help out. The Buck Boosters were led by Julie Chetney, so we really appreciate everything that she did in helping us coordinate this. And have to give a big thank you to Mayor Barlow, the police department, the fire department, DPW, and Cam's Pizzeria also as a sponsor. They were there, they were in the parade, then they were doing pizza afterwards. So that was a nice touch. Most of all comes down to the participants and, you know, the students that came out this year. Hopefully they went back into the school, even down to the elementary level, and get those little Buccaneers involved and spread the word, and we get more of the entire student body participating next year. Just so everybody knows, about 3 years ago, the boosters, we did a survey within the high school, and one of the things that we got back, one of the leading things that we got back that the students would like to see was the Buck Parade, you know, kind of lining it up with homecoming weekend. We were able to find a spot with the Powder Puff game, worked out great. A lot of people go and enjoy the Powder Puff game. That was a great event too. So we took that, we got some feedback about a bonfire, we got feedback from the student body just about more spirit activities, maybe instead of one time in the fall, that there might be a winter and a spring pep rally type event. So I know a lot of people associate the Buck Boosters with just athletics, but some of the things that we'd like to also collaborate on is just school spirit and how the kids feel. Buccaneer signage with, you know, in the school district, in the gymnasium, stuff like that. So just not athletics, but also how they feel when they're in the school district. So we want to help out with that. So anyway, we look forward to growing the event next year, and we certainly would like to talk with the school district and hope that you might be consider being involved next year as well. So thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you, Sean. Amy?
All right. Amy Callan, 3239 State Route 48 in Oswego. Different being on this side over here. I'd just like to share some statistics, information, thoughts, et cetera, with all of you regarding perception, word of mouth, communication, collaboration, and integrity. Essentially, word of mouth can be summed up in one word: trust. In fact, 92% of people trust recommendations, point of view, experiences, and information from their friends over any other source. 74% of people identify word of mouth as a key influencer in their decisions and how they feel about things. While these things are all great news, when the things that are being talked about are positive, when the news and information that's being talked about and perpetuated as negative, this information could be damning. A bad piece of word of mouth spreads faster than wildfire. Did you know that 54% of people share bad news with 5 people, while only 33% of people share their good experience with 1 person? With all that being said, I'd like to ask the question of what you think the effects of the negative dialogue and information that's being shared in our grocery stores, coffee shops, gyms, on the fields, in lounges, and in break rooms is having on our school district. Just recently, we'll talk about the conversations that start with things such as the school district refused to collaborate with the boosters in the city in the creation of the Spirit Parade. Conversations that start with the district changed a policy so that the school could hire the superintendent's family members, the newest position being tonight. Any or all of the backlash surrounding the handling of Pop Warner. Comments that nothing's being done to protect and advocate for academic achievement, positive learning environment, as well as the safety of all students and teachers and staff. What's being done about students who cannot and will not act in a safe, respectable manner in the classrooms. And finally, questions of, did you hear that a superintendent no longer lives in Oswego? How is that allowable? Perception, trust, and word of mouth are all very real and very impressionable. If you do not have the community's trust and support, you have nothing. If you do not change your story, your direction, the stories that are being talked about and shared throughout our community, the outlook does not look so bright. Leadership starts at the top, and you are the top. Your job as elected officials is to represent the community. You oversee an $84 million business. You set the tone and the direction of the district. You create the district goals, which can be found on your website, and then you charge the superintendent to work with his team to come up with solutions and strategies to meet and exceed the goals that you've set. You then monitor the progress of these goals, you hold accountability, and you do this for the good of our district and our entire community. The mentioned situations that are happening and being talked about do not support the goals that have been set. In fact, they go against them. Instead of spending all the time and energy you have to in putting out fires caused by the bad choices and negative narratives that are going around by not following set goals and expectations, the community would much rather see you guys holding accountability, making sure that the super is working with his team in a collaborative, transparent, and trustworthy way to come up with solutions and plans that meet and exceed the goals you have set. We as a community want to see you elevate our district with integrity. Ask for, accept, encourage collaboration with various areas in our community, with external and external stakeholders. Be open, and do not allow fear of retaliation to discourage people from coming forward with their concerns as well as providing good solutions. Make sure policy and procedures are being followed, no exceptions. Don't make changes to these based on situational or personal needs. Policies, rules, and expectations are there for a reason. It avoids the look of impropriety. Changing them only brings disruption and breaks down culture and removes trust. People question $70,000 on a food service position. Is that fiscally responsible? Has that been identified as the most important area that needs to allocate money towards? Why not share services? Why not look a little deeper into that possibility? Save the money. And if there really is money to spend, maybe we should be investing it on improving academic achievement and creating a safe learning environment for our students. Start aggressively problem-solving the current classroom culture. There is a direct correlation between this and achievement. Remove the disruptions, support the ones who want to learn, and support our teachers. Create an alternative setting, like an academy perhaps, and improve learning opportunities and experiences for all students. Give those kids who cannot function in an acceptable way an alternative so they can be successful too. The community wants nothing more than to be proud of and to trust in you and our schools. Please show the integrity, do what's right, and remember those statistics. 92% of people are going to trust the information that they hear from their family and friends. At the end of the day, you guys control the direction, you control the stories being shared. What is it that you want the community to talk about? Thank you very much.
Okay, before we move on to superintendent's report, I just want to thank those of you who do not perpetuate false proofs. I'll pass that on to you, Ian.
I'd like to introduce Tom Zuber. Tom is our auditor, and he's here tonight to share his uplifting report on our audit. Great, thank you. Tom. You want to sit?
What I received,
Whatever you're comfortable with.
You should have all received in the report packet copies of the audited financial statements, and so what I'm going to do is just go over a few highlights. As you know, back on October 11th, the audit committee met with one of our senior managers and reviewed the draft financial statements, and spent a lot of time talking about the financial condition of the school district. So I'm just going to give kind of a few summary bullet points of that discussion, and if you have any questions, I'll be happy to try and respond to those questions. But overall, the district continues to be in good financial condition. As we met with the audit committee, we talked about a lot of good information. We talked about year-over-year budget variances. We talked about reserve accounts. We talked about fund balances, budget variances, internal controls, checks and balances. So it really was a very good conversation. In addition to that, the financial statements you have really are the results of the budget process that you started almost 2 years ago. Okay, so this really kind of talks about how that budget process, kind of the tail end of that, and what were the results of that budget process. Okay, so this really ends up being the results of that. In the end, the district did end the year in good financial position. Overall, the total reserves and fund balances did go down about $3.5 million, okay? But that was a planned reduction, all right? As you know, the voters approved the utilization of about $5.9 million of your capital reserve, okay? So if you moved that money out of your general fund and it went into the voter-approved capital project. As you know, it's about a $63 million capital project. So you're really in the beginning phases of that capital project. And those capital reserves are very, very important when it comes to the long-term planning of the school district. The reserves are really there to help offset the local portion, reduce the tax impact on any capital project. So very, very beneficial reserves, and reserve that I know the district will continue to explore going forward. So again, very, very positive aspect. A couple of the other reserves, the district did create a teacher's retirement contribution reserve. Again, it's a brand new reserve that the state, through the budget process, allowed school districts to create. So many of our clients did create and fund this reserve this year. So again, it really is positive, showing how the district is reacting to any potential future impact. As you know, the retirement contribution, the state dictates what those rates are, and they can go up and down very easily. And if they do go up, you can utilize this reserve to help support any spikes in that rate. So again, very, very positive from the long-term financial planning of the school district. So you did pull out about $5.9 million from the reserves, and at the end of the year, if you recall, the board did pass some resolutions to refund some of those reserves. So again, very positive from the long-term financial plan. Overall, we talk about the dollars that you refunded into the reserves, okay, and it really comes from your budgetary surplus. Again, the result of a budget process that you began a couple years ago. And the district did spend about 98%, more than 98% of your budget, okay? So you are very tight on the expenditure side of your budget, okay? So you're doing a very good job in monitoring it, and it's something you want to continue to monitor. So some of those other funds came from the revenue side of your budget, okay? Some of the adjustments relating to some of the large pilots and so forth, but also, if you recall, the school district did sell the educational center, okay? So that was some dollars that came in. Again, one-time items, all right? So just to be aware of that, even though you did have some fund balances coming into the school district, or some surpluses, about a little more than $1 million was relating to the sale of that education facility. So just to keep that in mind. Okay. Overall, though, you did end the year and you continue to be in good financial position. So again, very, very positive results from the audit side of it. One of the other items that the district did do is you did reduce your appropriated fund balance, okay? Which, as you know, we mentioned you spent 98% of your budget, so you reduced your appropriated fund balance. That's going to give you a little more flexibility on the budget side of it, okay? Because as you know, when you appropriate fund balance as part of your budget process, you have to generate budgetary surpluses just to break even, okay? So by reducing that down to zero, it gives you a little more flexibility, especially because you're so tight on the expense side of the budget. So it's very positive going into this current 1920 fiscal year. So a couple of the other items noted. The school lunch program, okay, we've talked about that over the years, and again, you continue to show improvement in that program. You did generate an overall profit in that program, about a little over $80,000. Okay, it's been very positive for that program, although there is still a deficit with that program, but over the past few years, you've been working away at that deficit, so that's again very positive relating to the fiscal health of that program. So it's something that the district should continue to monitor. Okay, so overall, from the financial statement, the operating statements, and very positive results at the end of the year on the basic financial statements. And that's about a 65-page report, okay? So again, we do spend a lot of time with your audit committee, just a couple bullet points from that discussion, okay? The other document you have is an internal control communication, okay? And as part of any audit, part of the process is that we have to sit down and review and document all the different processes and procedures and checks and balances that the district has over all of the different financial cycles. Okay, so we spend a lot of time in the district interviewing and documenting what those processes and procedures are. I'm pleased to report there are no material weaknesses or significant deficiencies. Very positive from the audit side of it. You have a couple procedural recommendations to enhance the checks and balances. A couple of them we talked about, school lunch programs, and just continue to monitor that. So overall, very, very positive. The district did implement 2 items that we talked about in the prior year, so that's very positive. It shows that you're reacting to our communications, our recommendations, and it really does show very positive actions on the school district. So again, 2 items that were corrected from the prior year. So overall, you ended the year in good financial condition. You continue to be in good financial condition. Your fund balances did go down, but it was a planned erosion of fund balance, utilizing for capital projects. Spent 98% of your budget, so it's something you want to continue to monitor. Okay? Any questions?
No, it just feels good that we're doing something right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Couple of-
before we,
For Heidi, would you give the board just a brief report on the progress of the latent principal search, as well as introduce Lou?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yes. So we currently we had posted the latent principal position internally on our website and through OLAS, that's our professional recruitment site. We had a good response. We reviewed all of the potential applicants with the superintendent and with Mrs. Plass. And we have first round interviews scheduled on Thursday. And we have a number of applicants coming in. And then we also have a nice, robust committee. So we have representatives from the various bargaining units. We have a parent rep on there. We have a group of teachers who are joining us, so come on.
Is anybody on the board on?
Yes.
Yes.
and what is the time frame as you see it right now?
So, best case scenario, that we might have a name for you to consider at the second meeting in November, because all of the applicants are currently employed as administrators, and most administrators have to give a 30-day notice. That brings us right to the holiday break. So in my mind, perfect world would be, somebody would be here to start when we return in January. And so that's a nice segue to introduce Mr. Louis Castellini. and he, as long as everything moves forward smoothly tonight, is coming on board as an interim administrator here at Layton, starting tomorrow. And he has agreed to stay with us through the beginning of January and allow some transition. So we would really have to give a huge thanks to Doctors Doty and Volkamer for their giving of their time and their buildings as well. And they'll stay on with Mr. Kistolini to provide some transition while he's getting up to speed. We had a chance to chat with them last week and we met briefly. And then they'll also help with the transition in January.
You're welcome.
I know.
Thank you very much. Thank you to those two buildings and the professionals who all helped out to make this.
Absolutely, the faculty and staff
Really
of all three buildings.
appreciated.
Big
Yeah.
transition.
So I got a couple quick questions around this. Did we consider, we have some administrators that have filled temporary positions within our district. Were these administrators that have gone through the training or have filled in the past considered for filling in the position in Layton as well as being considered for the principal position?
So it's a probationary position posting, so any internal candidates could certainly apply for the position, true. In terms of an interim, because this was for what we considered a significant portion of time, the better part of November, all of December, and possibly some January, it might have been difficult to pull somebody from their current role because the folks who are working in other positions in other buildings are all very necessary to the workings of the day. So it was our...
And I know it was discussed when I was on the board before, and I'm not sure if it was ever made into an official policy, but that anyone who is considering being an applicant shouldn't be filling that temporary role. It just gives an unfair advantage, or maybe disadvantage for that matter, who knows? But we just, it's not really good form. So I don't know if it was policy or not, but I know that that was something we discussed.
Policy, but it's good practice.
Yeah.
Does that provide some information?
Thank you.
You're
The
welcome.
next item is really a result of some conversation that we had at the second board workshop a week or so ago, and there was a lot of conversation about the idea of physical education and the excuses that students might be required to have if they missed a physical education class. So I had some conversation with Pat Wallace over the last week, and I actually met with Pat and Mary Beth and Rhonda. And we talked about the practice, how the practices might be different from the middle school to the high school. And so we're going to implement some changes relative to physical education, particularly at the Oswego High School. So moving forward, a child that has a legitimate doctor's appointment, college visit, as long as they come in with a prompt and legitimate parent note, will not be required to make up that physical education class, nor will it affect their grade. Even though we understand that largely at the high school, physical education, we think we talked a little bit about, should we know that in the past there have been periods of time where phys ed that grade did not go into their overall index. I think that teachers and administrators agree that it's important that that does occur. So not only will they not have to make up the phys ed class, but also that absence will not affect their grade. Other students who might have other absences related to maybe just being sick, we're going to implement a form similar to what the middle school uses, which is a PE form, that if the child brings it back signed by the parent indicating that the child has participated in either an athletic practice or an athletic contest or some other physical activity, that they also would be excused from missing PE on that day. Because it doesn't make a lot of sense for us that a child misses a phys ed class and they have to stay after school to make up phys ed, but they're not staying after class to make up physics or an English class. So those are some changes that are coming in.
And when will those
Quite
take
frankly,
place? When do
as soon as we have an opportunity to communicate with phys ed staff at the high school, Pat, Mary Beth, and Rhonda are working on a correspondence to families explaining the change in the practice.
Okay.
Dean,
Yeah.
would it just be the parent that would sign it, or could the coach sign it too?
Yeah,
I mean, are you gonna kind of,
As long as there's some indication by an adult, whether it be a coach or, if it was a college visit certainly, or if it was a doctor's appointment,
Right.
then the parent would sign, and that would be a legitimate excuse. We have to work out the details between the communication between a child bringing in a doctor's note or a note for being sick, and how that then gets communicated back to the PE teachers. So there's some things to work out. Yeah, our joint meeting was just this morning, so we're still going to work out the bugs. But in terms of practice, I think that the four of us were all in that this is a good change. Anything else on that?
Any
no,
questions on that?
thank you. I think
It's
that's
exciting.
moving
It's a
in the
really
direction.
balanced change.
Will
I
grades be
think that-
adjusted, Dean?
There would be no negative indication for a child's grade for having missed a PE class, as long as they have a legitimate excuse or
This year.
complete the form, right?
Well, until it goes in action, though, I would recommend kids make up their gym classes until
Yeah.
this is enacted, because it's the end of the quarter, so I could just see where there's.
Because we haven't had a chance to indicate to phys ed staff, office staff about the change in the practice. So we need a little transition time.
Yeah.
But we're not waiting for fall of 2020.
Maybe next quarter even.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
And this isn't to devalue,
No, we
Physical
had some
education
really
anyway.
good, is Rhonda here?
No.
We had some really good conversation about that,
Yeah.
because I think there's been some conversation over the past about, it is important, we obviously believed at some point when this practice was put in place that it's important for students to make up physical education classes for a couple of reasons. First of all, there's a requirement for them to participate in phys ed, which leads to another change that we're looking at that we'll report on later. But it's also important that we do not devalue physical education as a course, which is why we don't want to take away the grading for the course.
But this is just a continuum, actually, from what they learn in middle school. It's the
Right.
same practice, so it's actually, it's a lot more continuity that
Yes.
way. So, because it's a little shocker when you get to high school and all of a sudden,
Right.
your
Yeah.
whole GPA drops because you had a doctor's appointment.
Right, or if it's the end of a quarter and you happen to be absent for a college visit, or you're sick and there's not an opportunity for you to make up a phys ed class, and you're carrying a 95 or 100 phys ed average, which is important very important for college-bound students, and then they do not have an opportunity to make it up before the quarter ends, and then they have an 80 in PE.
and sometimes they don't
And
have the
that's the
opportunity
gift that
because they have to
keeps
be on
on
a bus
giving.
to go to
Yeah.
a
Go
competition
contest.
somewhere.
And I would specify in that list too, school-sponsored field trips,
Mhm.
because that, you could go on a field trip, school-sponsored, and still have to make up a gym class.
An away game, a tournament.
Yeah, those things. Sam,
Yes.
did you have
So
a
I
question?
still have to ask the question.
Yes.
If this has happened this year, will the grade go back to where it should be?
Have that
And you mean
person-
retroactively, if a child didn't make up a PE class? That's a very good question, a conversation we didn't have. So we'd have to look at that more closely. Or at the end of the first, yeah, that's a good question, we'll have to look at that.
I just wanted to say I think it's a change that's been a long time needed. There's been a lot of students that have been impacted negatively by this over the years.
Yeah.
So I think it's a good change. I just wanted to ask, along with that conversation we had at the workshop, there was also some discussion about if the student is playing a varsity sport, are they going to be required to, did we get into that at all?
Yes, we did. That's the other piece that I'm not really ready to report out on, but we did do some research after we talked about that. We do know that currently the only school district in our region that has a policy. What Sam's talking about is the practice of varsity level sports athletes being excused from participation in physical education for that particular season or semester. And our district historically has done it. We've been back and forth on this. Currently, according to the research that Rhonda submitted to me this afternoon, the only district that currently has that practice in place is Skinny Atlas. It didn't come with a sound endorsement from them, so we still have some work to do. But that, you're right, that was the other part of that conversation, and we did talk about it. We'll report back out on that when we have a little more definitive position on it.
That's good.
Yeah, the only other thing that I wanted to talk about before we get into the agenda is I wanted to put a shout out to Sean Nagel. Sean Nagel is our new agriculture club advisor at the Oswego High School, and many of you probably were following on, what's the name, you guys?
Yeah, the TV.
YouTube.
It was a live.
It was actually
The
on
live
it
stream,
was on
yeah.
YouTube as well.
Yeah.
They were hatching chicks, and they had a live cam on that. We've been working this year on developing an agriculture curriculum and program in our district, and Pat has been working with me, and Sean Nagel, who's one of our tech teachers, has really taken this by the horns, and he's running with it. Pat and Sean are going to the New York State Regional Agriculture Ed Conference on November 14th in Rome, and that at Mohawk Valley Community College. And this conference is really targeted for school districts, and it's also endorsed by the Oswego County Legislature. That agriculture education across our region is growing significantly, and we want to be on the cutting edge of that. We're looking at perhaps some shared staff with surrounding districts, so we actually have an agriculture teacher, but currently we're working on curriculum that would embed agriculture curriculum into a technology class for the fall of 2020. Ultimately working toward our FFA certification as a school district. So that's exciting new curriculum, and it's something that it really, the whole agriculture club at the Oswego High School has really has energized the students, and there's a lot of chatter at superintendent breakfasts and different things from students across the spectrum at the Oswego High School, and a lot of excitement about those
Yeah, it's really exciting.
activities. So.
Mrs. Harrell was also the nurse. Yeah,
That's right.
She also has been very key and
Yes.
instrumental in getting this started, and we really appreciate her efforts as well.
So thanks, Pat.
It's exciting.
Did you find homes for all?
I don't know.
Yes, yeah. They
You
are all,
did?
yep, yep, they all have homes back at farms, so we're
So.
good.
So let's back up for a minute. So these absences for gym class and such.
Yeah.
If a student was to attend farm day, something like that, is that going to count? Or are they, I mean, who's going to decide what's legitimately an excusable absence? And I guess what I'm going to say has got to be consistency. Last year, Rumor went to Albany with me and something like that, and they had to get back. They had to get back. It wasn't necessarily for gym class, but if we're going to have our students outside of the schools to better themselves and reach out and represent our district, there's got to be consistency. I guess what I don't want to hear is somebody come back to me if I say this year, hey, Ruma, you want to go back to Albany? She says they can't miss gym or something like that. That's not an excuse. That's going to be frustrating, right?
I think that would fall under an educational-based field trip
Okay.
or other experience that has some educational value or college preparation.
And I think, like Heather was saying, the consistency between the middle school, the way they do it with that paper coming home, I would sign, Nate had, when he missed, he had club volleyball for 3 hours on Sunday. So, just knowing that he's
Right.
still doing that activity, he's active. But I like the consistency between the two schools and carrying that through, especially with our student athletes.
And that panic you described is real, I gotta
Right.
get back, because I don't want to miss gym, so that's what
But I
we're
know
trying to
that
solve.
you and I have talked about a lot of things with FFA and all that we're trying to
Mhm.
put together.
Yep.
And I hate to get it all going and then have nobody want to be a part of it because they can't miss
Right.
something.
Right, right.
'Cause that happens.
Right, right, we do need to be consistent.
Yep.
I agree.
Okay.
Okay, that's it, all right, and we can move on to our consent agenda. And I'm just gonna make a statement here. I know there's a big game tonight, a big volleyball game tonight that's really exciting for our school, so we're gonna try and get through the agenda as quickly and as efficiently as possible. Okay, so the first action is for our claims auditor report, August 2019. Upon presentation and recommendation of Dr. Dean Guai, that the Board of Education approve claims auditor report for August 2019 as presented. Do I have a motion?
Love it.
Second.
Second.
Pam? Okay, all those, discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, number 2, claims auditor report September 2019. A presentation, recommendation of Dr. Dean Guai that we approve the district financial report for August 2019 as presented. And I have a motion.
Make a motion.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. I'd like to lump, yeah, if I could lump 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Are there any problems in there as you look at those, to lump those?
9 also.
The
Nine
nine special
and nine.
education board.
It's all consent.
Okay, can I have a motion, please, to
Move.
move those in the lump? It wants to do the first and the second. Okay, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. I'd like to pass it along to Crystal.
One is the girls' varsity hockey trip, permission to attend the hockey trip up in Messina. The only cost to the district would be travel and hotel room for coach and buster.
Number
We'll do
two.
the
Oh, you
boys
want me to
too?
do two?
We'll do
I'm
the
so
boys
sorry.
at the same
And
time?
the boys' varsity
Yeah.
hockey trip, also same thing, cost is only the transportation. They actually are going to Auburn.
Move.
Exciting. Okay, first, second.
Second.
Okay, discussion.
And these are annual trips that they budget for
They are
every
annual
year.
trips that they're budgeted for every year.
And they're paying for their own.
Yeah.
That the
Stays.
students are paying for, yeah.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Moving on. Personnel?
So before I do the professional, I just wanted to give one correction on number 3. Carolyn Slobodian's leave of absence is from 3/16/20 to 6/30/20.
Got it.
Yeah.
That's number 3.
That's number 3.
Leave of
Correct
absence.
that year. Blush, blush. So I would like to do 1 through 8 together. 1 is Mr. Castellini's recommendation for per diem administrator. 2, a resignation of one of our TAs. 3, the leave of absence I just mentioned. 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 are extra comp and extracurricular volunteers. That's presented.
Okay. Can I have a first? And a second?
Second.
Okay, now discussion? And any other
Second.
items? Oh, we got a second already.
Somebody got one?
Yep.
Speak up,
Go ahead.
Kathleen.
Trying to get you out of here, Sam.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
And then I'd like to do 9 through 14. They are our support staff recommendations. 9, 2 resignations. 10, a leave of absence. 11, a probationary appointment. 12, 2 permanent appointments. 13 is a Section 73 civil service termination. And 14 are our substitute and temporary employees.
Can I have a first
Move it. Move it.
and a second?
Second.
Just open for discussion now. Anyone have any questions about these? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
15 is a COASA recommendation, provisional appointment, upon the presentation and recommendation of Acting Superintendent of Schools, Mr. Christopher Todd. Presentation of a Director of Food Service appointment.
Okay, can I have a first?
Move it. Can I interrupt first?
Not till discussion, then you can. I need a first and a second.
Second.
Now discussion.
I was going to ask for a roll call onto it.
You can do that.
Number 2, asking for possibly a table because there was information going around today that was given out via the email. We were still getting questions answered today, so.
Wasn't that information that was presented, that you presented,
It's not new.
and we discussed it during that meeting?
And I think there was some information, the only last question
It's a big question, though.
was about a nutritional analyst, and we did get some preliminary information. I don't know what you want to,
We used to have a nutritional analyst as a subcontractor to the food service program, but that contract stopped like 3 years ago. All of our menus are certified, and we're actually using Central Square's menus for the food service, which they're already calculating all of the nutritional guidelines.
and I wasn't sure if your question was more about the nutritional information being provided on the menus, or if it was the analysis of the composition of the meals.
I believe the best practice of the National Food Lunch Program is that you have to have one. It's best practice for having one, and you can, I don't know, you can look that up, that's what I was reading. So my question is, if we don't have one, are we gonna have to pay for one down the road? That's,
Well, we're kind of sharing the service with
What are we
Central
gonna
Square.
do? Are we
Not
gonna-
anymore.
No, we're not anymore.
No, we're not doing anything with Central Square anymore, so that position has been open. But in terms of having someone on staff, I couldn't find anything in the regulations on child nutrition, but I will continue to look into that.
So my main thing around this was obviously the salary. Being an entry position with, again, not having the background, understanding that the person that's up for position is qualified, being new, being green, is that the right salary?
So the salary was also discussed at the last meeting, and there was a formula that was used to come up with it, and this salary is the lowest advertised salary. So because that's what we advertised, I don't believe we can go any lower.
Correct, and it was comparable to the, you have to be careful because you have to look at comparable positions across the region. So in a district where you're not subbing out food preparation and you are expecting someone to come in and actively supervise all 7 departments, that is where we landed based on the salaries that were provided from both,
Yep, I understand that.
as well as in collaboration with Nancy Stereo, Director of Personnel for the city. I always work with her to get her thoughts on what's a good salary range.
I believe you had a motion to table. So in order for that to go through, we need a first and a second and then to vote on it. So is there,
I'll second.
and the second is, you're the first, there's the second. You getting this, Nancy?
Yep.
Okay, so all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
You can vote on your own motion? Okay, so there's 2 ayes. All those not in favor, say aye or nay.
Nay.
Are you a nay, Tom?
I'm a nay.
Okay, so there's 5 nays.
Got it.
Okay, so that motion does not pass. We go back to the original motion, which is here, the resolution. We already have a first and a second. You asked for a roll call vote, so we can do a roll call vote.
But we can do discussion.
And we can still do discussion. We're still in discussion.
Okay, because I just want to say, you know, at the last meeting, I know I stated that I don't want to see us fall into a position where we give a person a job because of their last name, but I also don't want them to be penalized for their last name either. And that was a struggle, and I think tabling it from the last meeting was a good move, because the way we went about that and explaining everything in public meeting with Heidi and Nancy, and then going into executive and explaining, you know, getting more information that we needed to make sure that we were doing our due diligence and getting the correct information so that we could make an informed choice. I stand by that. Also, I appreciated the fact that we found out some more information, and this is just some stuff just to kind of give background on how I came to my decision on this, because 3 weeks ago, I would have voted no. Because I didn't have enough information. After that information came, Heidi kept the window open for taking applicants even after the recommendation had applied for an extra 2 weeks or so.
Yeah, and
So-
then I had mentioned that we did interview one other late applicant, so that was on the list that I had shared.
So
the
I-
memo
So-
sent out.
Yeah,
So
I
for-
appreciate you taking that extra time to do that, knowing that, you know, this could be, you know, I mean, this was gonna be a discussion.
And I have to say,
absolutely.
it's been a, you know, and I want to interject here too, is that in making the statement to the community that any vote that goes across this table, we do our due diligence. And I, for one, have always said that if everything is equal, and you have 2 candidates and one is a hometown individual, that we bring our kids home. And we give them the opportunity to live and to pay taxes here. And I think that the community has to trust that this board does do its due diligence. And Brandon, I know you weren't here for a lot of it. I don't know how much you reached out to try to gather information over the past 2 weeks. It's been a journey.
I get it.
But I, for one, know that I'm making a vote tonight, and I feel good about it, and we've done our due diligence.
So for me, so I don't want anybody to look at it as the last name thing, because it has nothing to do with that. If that's the most qualified one for the position, then that's fine, it's not a big deal. My thing is the salary, is the biggest thing, around the salary.
This is how many buildings, though?
Yes,
and
I
how many personnel?
understand what an administrative position is, I get it. I don't have to be reminded of it. My concern with it was just being not as green as he is in the positions we have. I mean, we have teachers, and I know it's not the same thing, but we have teachers with master's degrees that don't even make that salary.
This is a 12-month position, don't forget.
I understand.
And it's actually been 3 weeks. Have you reached out
So
to
what
make
I've
sure all your
done,
questions have been
is
answered?
I've asked questions with other board members to get information. I've had long conversations about it. I watched the last meeting, so I am very in tune with what I believe is going on. But today's email was interesting to me. It just.
Did you follow up after?
I did not. I figured we would discuss it.
Because
here.
there's a lot of things also that, that you could, that are confidential about this conversation as
Exactly.
well. And those would have been great questions to probably ask over the last 3 weeks. The other thing I want to make clear is the policy that was followed for this particular hiring process, just because of the sensitivity of the applicant, the policy was created by this board. It was voted upon by this board. And it was before my time, it was before Linda's time. And I'm a policy and procedure kind of gal, and as long as I feel as though the policy was followed as it was meant to be and as it was written, then I can support it. And I do feel
And I
that
also
way.
want to
Yeah,
thank
it's had nothing to
Heidi
do
for
with
I just,
You're welcome.
the.
can I
what you-
just,
Even the salaries.
I want to defend the salary. And I respect Brandon's opinion about the teachers and the masters, but first of all, a teacher works with maybe up to 25 students, 10 months a year, comes in with a master's for $55,000 a year. This individual will be feeding 3,000 students in 7 buildings, and if you take the 10-month salary and compare it to the 12-month salary and the responsibility, I think it's pretty equal. I think that 55 would be equal to 70 if they worked the extra 2 months. So I don't have a problem with the salary.
And for me, coming to terms with this whole thing, again, was going back to Heidi's conversations with Nancy Stereo from the city, which is not Oswego City School District, but the city of Oswego, that you have to be involved in with her in making these decisions. She looked at the qualifications, she looked at the position that was being open, and knowing that that was all part of this decision, so it wasn't just
Rubber stamp.
No,
here, yes.
and
I just, that
I
for
never
me was
would
just much more
just
comfortable.
propose something where I didn't feel I could substantiate where I was coming from. Nancy and I talked to a number of business officials, our colleagues who do their food service in-house, those who sub it out, what's the comparison, looking at the fact that we were changing the qualifications to require now a college degree, that's really what we were looking for, or the comparable experience, and I felt
And
it was
it's,
a
and it's easy to
comfortable-
forget the 12-month. I
Right.
mean, because
Yeah.
Heather reminded me when I was asking her questions.
And they
She was like,
oversee a
"Kathleen, it's
substantial
12 months."
budget.
And that was, I forgot that,
Yeah.
and so.
And I think our learning curve is this. I think as we move forward and there are positions that we're developing,
Yes.
maybe we discuss the pay scale before it's
Of course.
advertised, and that way we won't have this conversation retroactively.
That's
because that makes it
that
really
was my
comfortable.
bigger concern, right? So if we would have done that, it would have been probably a different story. So again, my only reason for tabling is simply around more discussion around the salary. It has nothing to do with anything else, the policy, the who it is, or anything else. It was completely around the salary portion. So that was my reason for taking it. We didn't have to, but that's what I felt. And as a board member, I have a right to ask that and give my opinion on it. So-
Right, and Brandon, I mean, I agreed with you on that, you know,
So
in
we tabled it last time.
that we tabled it last time and we did bring the salary
Right.
back down to what was advertised. So that made me more comfortable in this decision as well.
So to go along with
Also-
that, with the 12-month probationary, or the 12-month, not probationary, but the 12-month position, I would have thought that that 12-month position would have been a lower position. If we extended that position further, then it could have went to a higher rate based on a year's worth of experience. That was my background thinking around all of this, which I
I
understood.
think that was everyone's thinking, which is why we started at the lowest level.
Well, it was the
And we
lowest
did-
level because that was what we advertised.
And
Well, we
we,
advertised a range.
and in that executive, we did discuss
Where all
those
the,
things
yes, yeah.
in detail with, you know, different school districts, how many years those people had and what those salaries were. So that
The
was part of
backgrounds
all the
were-
discussion.
Yeah.
It was
I get
okay
it.
for me to say that, right?
Yeah, you're just qualifying what we said, you didn't say specific, it's all good.
I-
All right,
so-
more discussion?
And it's not, he still has to take a CSEA.
Mhm.
Can you
Yes,
explain
of
that a
course.
little bit too? Because
So-
this isn't,
This is a provisional appointment, and we don't have a current list, so that's always where I would start with City Hall, is there a current list? There's not. So whenever the exam is offered, the candidate will have to take and pass the exam, and then we'll serve a probationary period after that. So provisional, take the test, probationary. So there's a substantial period of time where we can gauge the success of any new hire.
Brian, did you have another question?
I was just gonna say that, I mean, I echoed a little bit of what Brandon had to say, that, you know, I did some research out there too, and there's just some of it that just doesn't line up enough for me to tonight feeling comfortable with what we asked for. I just-
And what is that? What
Just
is,
the
what's the
fact-
information?
Just the fact of the salary piece, the nutritional piece, have we researched, and I don't know because I didn't really get the answer on, have we researched, you know, I know that some districts are going with to do lunches and things to that matter, have the OCs oversee the whole nutritional piece and everything to that matter?
We did look into that.
We did, well,
And see, I would just say this relative to it, because I know we have to make these decisions sometimes, and people were not available for some of the meetings or some of the conversation. But I feel like we're going to get to those points, we're just going to have to move forward regardless of whether people can be there or not. And then whoever's there and the quorum is there, the board will make the decision, we'll move forward. Because I appreciate and respect that, but at a certain point, we can wait and wait and wait. And I think we've already 5 weeks out right now from the initial conversation, and I think we just have to make a decision and move forward.
Right. And to add to what Tom's saying, I want to thank those faculty again and staff who have been pinching it for us. Well, we haven't had a director in place because I know you guys have been flipping pancakes and such, so I just really
Do
appreciate
what you have
that.
to do, and I
Yeah.
really appreciate our food service
Appreciate
staff
it.
and Deanna Crisafulli, the clerical staff over there. She's been
She's
wonderful.
been holding down the fort.
Really appreciate that. So if there's no more discussion, I think he called for a roll call vote. Are we prepared to vote?
Yeah.
yes,
Okay, Kathleen Allen,
yes.
Ryan Chetney,
Nope.
Tom Ciappa,
Yes.
Heather Del Conte, yes. Brandon Legault,
No.
Linda Serena,
Yes.
Sam Tripp.
Yes.
Motion passes. Great. So we can move on to finance.
Finance, I have a tax certiorari settlement with Pontiac Nursing Home. There will be no refunds and no further cost to the district. And then number 2 is for the whole board to approve the audited financial statements that were presented by Tom Zuber tonight.
I have a first to move
Move it.
both at the same.
Move it.
Second.
Okay, any discussion on those two things? All those in favor?
Aye.
Excellent. Okay, now this is the best part of the whole meeting, over here from our student representative.
So we had our past team and our Buck Booster Parade, which was really successful. A lot of people liked the Buck Booster Parade and the school spirit, and especially seeing Mayor Barlow there. And it's definitely something that I think a lot of people would like to see again next year. Powder Puff was successful, seniors won. However, half of the senior team actually was not able to make it due to the date change and the required 2-week notice for jobs. And since most seniors have jobs, they weren't able to make it, and a lot of people were disappointed by that. But otherwise, it went pretty good. As you were saying about Agricultural Club, it definitely has a very large presence in the school. It's one of the clubs that every student knows, and even if you're not in Agricultural Club, you stop by to see the chicks. I just did it today. And it's definitely had a really big impact in the school. What you were saying about the gym with the new makeups, I think that would be very successful because I feel like a lot of students, including me and my friends, especially lately, it's the end of the quarter and we're like, oh, I have to make up this physics lab, I have to make up a gym. And sometimes the gym teachers, when you're available, they're not available. And then maybe you don't have study halls, and it's very hectic, especially towards the end of the quarter. And I think a lot of people would definitely appreciate that change. And I know a lot of people have been wanting something like that, especially sports teams have been saying like, oh, I wish practices would count as a makeup gym. And I think a lot of people would definitely be happy with that. Otherwise, no further news.
I love your input. That's exciting.
Can I say one thing?
Yes.
The Agricultural Club also came up with a great fundraiser. People donated money to get pictures with chicks. So the whole student body came down and got pictures they held a chick in their hand as they got their picture taken, and they did it as fundraiser for the club.
Yeah, they gave like birth concert.
They did.
I think they gave like $200.
They did a great job.
It was really quite successful, so that's very exciting. Okay, do we have any items from the board?
Yes, how many people will be meeting me at 5:15 on Thursday?
We have to be out there at 6, right?
Huh?
We have to be out there at 6.
Yes.
Should we go
Okay.
at 5 then?
No, I think you could get there on time
Okay.
at 5:15.
And
When, I'm sorry, Linda, I'm trying to keep notes. When is this
No,
for?
I'll be there.
This is for the program
I'll
out
be
in the
there.
city. We're meeting with some state
Sam,
officials.
Yes, representatives.
Where are you
And
meeting?
we're going to
right
also.
here.
I didn't know you were gonna do that.
Well, I forgot to sit down.
Okay.
We're going to meet at 5:15 at the auditorium.
Okay.
And we're going to take 2 cars.
I may do that.
Okay.
I didn't know that was in the
Well, I just thought it'd be
plan.
nicer if we
Like
all
we do at the
walked
BOCES
in.
dinner. Like we do for the dinner in the
Yeah,
spring.
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Where, Linda? Where are we gonna meet?
We're in the Stern building.
You're
Oh, we
pointing.
meet
Oh.
at
Yours is-
BOCES.
Where, no, where are we meeting?
Linda wanted to carpool, so she
Oh,
wanted to be
that
here.
way.
Okay. I don't know, I was just trying to figure out, you said they're on, I go, okay.
Main
All right.
entrance at the high school.
Okay.
So I may
And
already be
I feel
out.
good, there's only 2 not going.
Yeah, I'll be there. But I think I'm gonna drive myself because I may already be out there for a 4-H event.
Who's going
Oh,
on?
all right.
Yeah.
We've got Tom, Kathleen, Heather, you,
Pictures, I hope.
Sam, and me.
Okay. All right.
I just wanted to quickly thank you, Buck Boosters, and that are here tonight. That I was also part of helping with that parade too, and I think it was really, really successful. And the candidate I got surprisingly was supportive as well. So good job to going forth and doing that, and to a lot of the staff that were there as well that night that were also very supportive to the kids, because that's what it's all about.
Yeah.
Buck Pride. And even the little kids who were interested, and wanted to be there. They all had fun, and it was a great night. It was good.
Was the invite for that left to all the clubs? I know there weren't any clubs that participated, but was the invite put out to all clubs, not just sports clubs?
It was put out to like the Honor Society and the student councils. It's really kind of last minute, so we tried to.
Right, and I know you guys were like,
Yeah.
so maybe that's something we can do next year, because I
Well-
know that all-inclusive piece
Yeah.
was
Well, I
something we
think that,
discussed.
and I think that's part of what Mr. Callen maybe asked for, that if the district maybe supported it a little
Yeah.
bit more, it could have been put out there within the schools.
I only reached out to clubs that I knew the advisor
Sure.
was, just for my own kids. So
A lot of it had to go through word of mouth.
So maybe we could appoint, for next year, having the district involved, is appoint a couple of us from the board to be on a committee with them. Be invited on a committee, and then we can, give them the support they need.
I don't think to prolong this conversation, I think the district was invited to be involved.
I can't hear you.
The district was invited to be involved.
Oh. I don't.
But the board was not, so we didn't know about it. So there's,
You didn't know, you didn't
criticism
know
aimed
about
our
the
way,
parade?
but it wasn't.
You didn't know
Oh, I
about
knew,
the-
I
oh.
knew, I knew about the parade once it was already moving, once it
Alright.
was already in motion, but certainly it wasn't brought to our board as to approve or not to approve.
And I think Linda
Absolutely
agreed
not, it
again,
didn't.
that's excellent.
Perfect.
We love it. We'd love to have the engagement.
Yes,
workshop.
I
It'd
would
be
sit
awesome.
on it.
Thank you for saying.
I would sit on it.
But this just brings the whole conversation full circle, because I think there are a lot of mistruths and misfacts that get perpetuated in social media, in the public, that aren't steeped in fact. They're not steeped in experience. They are perceptions based on incomplete information. And so I think it would be an exciting goal for everyone, I guess, to make sure that before we perpetuate these things, we have all of the information. Because it was really a surprise to this board to be kind of criticized for not being involved when it wasn't, we had nothing to do with it, we weren't even included.
Yeah. I think it's communication all the way down the line.
Right.
Communication up front, and, you know, just making sure it's on everybody's radar, and as long as we're in the loop, then the better it's going to be for everybody.
What form would you as a board like to be communicated with? Are emails appropriate?
Yeah.
Or do you want people coming, you know, during public session? What do you think would be the best
Public
avenue?
session is
for that?
fantastic, because you know what?
Okay.
Then the public is hearing it at the same time we're hearing it. So there's no miscommunications. Emails, I hate emails, because first of all, I get like 400 a day and I might miss one, and I'll feel really bad if I do. I feel terrible when I do. But that's a great way for us to be face to face. You know, it's really hard to misunderstand that way.
Yeah.
And we have a practice here too. If we need to get immediate feedback, we'll take a break from the meeting and interact right away. So I would, if that could be the practice that we start getting in motion, I would love that.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, a perfect example was the Pop Warner thing. Everybody at this board table said, how can we help, what can we do? And the communication still ended up getting, and came back at us, that it was all our fault.
And it
When
was.
we were more than trying to support, and when they came to us and spoke to us. So, yeah, I think that would be
That
the
being
best
said, with
avenue.
communication, I don't know if our social media was the best use of publicizing that Pop Warner piece. To me, I felt that was not
So
good taste.
that was a board decision
Oh.
at the workshop, because there was still a lot of confusion and questions coming our way and all of that. And by the way, let's not forget, social media is where the falsities are perpetuated. So it would be that audience that you're trying to correct
But I
the,
thought we agreed that we weren't going to use social media for that reason.
what, to correct mistruths?
No, but I mean,
If that's
it could
the
have been on
audience that is
webpage.
perpetuating it, and those are the questions we're getting,
Right.
that is the quickest way to
But
get to that audience.
I guess though, I wasn't at that meeting, I guess.
It
So
was
my
at the
point is,
workshop.
when the post at the board, I'm thinking, wait a minute, I literally told you, I don't know about this. I didn't put this out. I didn't, because I wasn't there.
Because you weren't at the workshop.
Right, but I guess if we're gonna say the board,
Probably
But it
should have been a
was the
discussion
board.
for the workshop.
But it was the board, it was, I mean, we are the board,
Okay.
we're not,
And it's not really an
It's
official
not-
action.
right.
And- Yeah, and by the way, that is our response, Brian, because that's the truth. That is our
but
legal
maybe on the
guidance.
webpage would have been fine. I guess I'm saying is, I went under the assumption that we all thought, we talked about social media was a lot of things on there aren't truth and aren't whatever, so I was just surprised that we use social media to put something on afterwards. It's kind of like, why usually if you don't agree with it?
So I'll be honest with you, I wasn't going to, and I didn't want to, but the majority wanted to. And so you have to follow the
Because a
majority.
lot of
I'm not a
people don't-
dictator, I'm.
Don't go on our website, they don't get the Pale Times.
Right, if you get.
And we're just
So
kind of
questions, lots of
tired
questions.
about all this misinformation out there. You know, so we try to get to the people to give them honest information.
And you're right, we're not engaging in conversations on social media.
That's what it turned into.
No, there
I mean,
wasn't
we
a
did
give and
respond,
take.
but
Yeah, it
then
wasn't a
you
give and
read
take.
the
They can,
comments and
people are
everything.
free to respond. But that's not our forum to give, to pick fights and have arguments. But if you want to put out facts and you want to put out, especially since there was so much misinformation.
that was the
That was,
unfortunate part, was there was so much misinformation and so much responsibility put on us for that, when that's not our role as a Board of Education. Our role on Board of Education is not to problem solve for, we want to support and help where we can, and
Legally.
what's legally, what we can legally for an organization, but this was not legally our call.
And it's just
I
an
mean, when the New York
example
State
too.
comptroller is telling us, no, you can't, that's
When-
kind of big.
And it's a small core group of people that just want.
Well, it's an example where you can't, that's why we're elected, is to not react to perception, especially social media perception. We need to be leaders in the community and just do what is right. And in this case, what was legal was right. We are entrusted with public funds. You can't take a public funds from another public entity, these are tax dollars, receive those tax dollars, and then in turn, pay them out for one entity. You cannot do that. That is illegal.
I don't disagree with any of that. I'm just saying, the fact of using social media, I just was surprised by it.
Well, it wasn't a discussion, it was just so that the whole community had our letter, that we, our guidance that we got from an independent legal, yeah.
And I mean, in hindsight, I understand what you're saying, Brian, in hindsight, maybe not releasing the entire document that we received from the attorney, maybe just a
Well, the
summary would have
introduction was
been-
supposed to be just in the memo, and then if people wanted more, you know, they love legal jargon, you know, have at it. But that's why we had the little introduction, so if people just want to know, carte blanche, this is where we stand, and then if they want to read the legal stuff, they could. But I think it's pretty self-explanatory without reading the letter. Okay, any other items? Oh, actually, no, there is going to be need for executive session. So, and the reason is legal.
Tonight,
Tonight.
I move for executive session.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, and there will be no action afterwards.
We'll stay here.
Stay here.
Thank you.